Hello there and welcome to my character creation guide for Caves of QUD. In this video I'm going to guide you through all you need to know to create working builds and create characters that are fun. I'm not going to give you any cookie cutter builds or anything like that. In this video it's all about finding out how to create characters that work and have fun with that, because this game offers so many experimentation methods that it is something that I really want to showcase here in this video, because it ain't that hard to get something together that's working, and here's how. So first thing you choose is you're going to decide whether you want to play a melee, range, or magic build. This is the very first decision that you should go for, and it's very important that you do that. Then mutated human or true kin. This video is going to be oriented towards the mutated humans, but pretty much all of the things that I say in here transport pretty well to these guys. It's not that much of a big deal. True kin works with cybernetics, whereas mutated humans work with mutations. That's the biggest difference, but I'm going to stick to this one here and try it out when you want to try something different. Anyways, once we go here, we get to choose our calling. The calling gives you a bonus on your base stats and a couple of skills. That's that. The base stats are described as follows. You have 3 stats that are very important for any branch of builds. Strength is for melee builds, agility is for ranged builds, and ego is for magic builds. This is if you want a straight up orientation for your combat skills. There's obviously more to this game than just combat, therefore there's also backgrounds that give you economy skills, like you're the nomad or the water vine farmer. Choose to your own liking. If you're new to the game, stick to the combat related backgrounds, as these are giving you a really good edge to get into the game. We're going to choose here a marauder and build, for the sake of this video, a melee character. But I'm going to explain over the course of this video all the other options. So, one last word here to this before I go into the mutations. The secondary skills that you learn here, none of these are only acquirable at the beginning. It's only basically choosing what you're starting with and what you gotta be learning next. Okay, mutations. So mutations is a very, very wide field and probably the most overwhelming part of this character creation process. It boils down to a couple of few easy things, though, if you look at it like this. Your job here is to choose a handful of mutations that complement your build. So if you're looking for a melee build, you should look for stuff that works well with melee. Like, for example, multiple arms. That would be something that works really good, as you get extra attacks. Borrowing claws if you want to go unarmed, for example. A beak, which is also really good if you're in melee, because you get a free pack attack. Whatever. You ideally choose here 3 to 4 mutations that will complement your build well. That is the basic idea here. The other thing that I want to talk about is the mental mutations tree scales off of your ego value. So if your character is ought to have a low ego because you want to play melee weapons and guns, you should be careful with that tree, because the lower your ego, the more these skills get downscaled, and you would be really shooting your own leg if you'd be relying too much on a mental mutation. My personal favorite here is to pick one generalistic mutation, one specific mutation for my character class, and one utility mutation that's ought to get me out of a dangerous situation. So here, for example, multiple legs. If you're new to the game, this is one of the coolest things out there. And even if you are not new to the game, moving faster trivializes so many melee enemies. It is wonderful. Also, it gives you more carrying capacity. So here, for example, this is a wonderful thing, which is a neutral mutation that just works for everybody, because either mage, melee dude, or range dude, we all love to move faster. So categorize it to your own liking. So here, for example, our example build takes multiple legs, multiple arms for that extra melee smack, and I could now opt into, for example, corrosive gas to have a utility that melts area around me, I could choose sleep gas, so I have an easier time retreating or an easier time bashing down enemies. I could go for spinnerets, which allow me to get another strategical advantage while moving away. It is very important that you have one mutation that serves more or less as a oh shit button, you know? Because this game will give you these moments where you just want to go out there and stay alive somehow. So choose to your own liking at that point, whatever tickles your fancy. My big recommendation is also stay experimenting. So pick a couple of things where you felt like, wow, that was really cool that last run, but these spinnerets, they sucked. So choose that and choose something else then. One word about negative mutations. These give you extra freebies. Um, it is actually very, very recommendable to add in one or two defects that don't work too badly against your build. So here again, since we're playing a melee dude, we could be now starting to build around something around the mental defects. Socially repugnant is one of the easiest things that you can pick up because it just makes you work a little bit harder to make friends with other people. But there's a lot of other downsides that you could pick. The major point here is just try to not screw up the main aspect of character with the defects that you pick. If you're insecure about the defects, just leave them out. You can perfectly fine start a character without any defects. But for example, if we'd be taking socially repugnant here, we'd have either the freedom to even leave out spinnerets and take something fancy like regeneration, or we could also pick up electromagnetic pulse to disable machines. I think that's a good choice to be a little bit worse off in questing and being able to disable machines. The thing here is, you can buy mutations alongside of your career later down the road, but it requires you 4 level ups to buy the first rank of a new ability. So basically, this is the time to buy all the things that you want your character to exist upon, and you do well in paying a few deficits here instead of having to buy the skill later because it's really more costly later. Okay, moving on over to the attributes. This is actually way easier than the mutation screen. So depending on the main attribute of your character, you rise that to at least 20. In our case, we have a melee character. As we see here, the Marauder calling here helps us too. Now the next step is choose a secondary mode of attack. Every character needs some secondary mode of attack. If you are playing a magic character, you should have some alternative at some point when you're on cooldowns or the enemy happens to be practically immune against what you're doing. All these things can happen and you should be prepared. So in my example, I'm going old school into a character with guns, you know, swords and guns, never goes old. So agility. If you'd want to go for swords and magic, you'd be going here for a 18 here on ego. The thing here is, the secondary attribute is important because there are always situations where you can't rely on your primary. It is just what it is. Next up, toughness isn't... Everybody needs toughness, alright? I would recommend to get this as high as you can possibly agree to yourself with. Intelligence is another one of these universal attributes. Intelligence does not only give you more skill points and gives you identification of super powerful items, it also gives you more abilities that earn you money. Intelligence is basically a money stat, at the beginning of the game at least. So the higher you have that, the easier you'll have it to earn money. At the same time, ego is also a money stat, because the worse your ego, the more you'll pay for the stuff that you buy and the less money you'll get while selling. So that's another thing. Willpower is cooldown and regeneration. Willpower is one of the most squishy stats out there, but you are not wise to leave it on a very, very low level. I personally think that this is one part of the character creation process where you can decide for yourself whether you want a dirty generalist like I did it here, or a specialist that suffers on some ends for the sake of more power on your primary things. So you could tinker for some monstrosity like this one here if you want an all-out fighter. Here you have a lot of leeway of tinkering back and forth. The thing is, the stats grow more costly beyond 18. That is why it's pretty cheap to have a fair distribution like that, but costly to be a full-on specialist. Choose to your own liking. I think specializing in the proper direction is absolutely invaluable, but you can screw yourself over so hard when you kneecap the wrong attribute that I would recommend doing this carefully. You know, find out what's your personal deficiency to carry easiest. Some people would hate to be bad off at trading. Some people would hate to be bad off at HP pool. It's very different. Our playstyles are not the same. So you gotta decide for yourself where you want to have a low attribute to boost up the others. But every build can afford to have a low attribute. For example, in our scenario here, I would go for ego as low attribute. But you can also go for it. This works well too. Just saying. Now, this makes up one melee character. You can, of course, go for the same process oriented on other attributes. The thing is, if you're playing around an ego character, a lot of these abilities here make a lot more sense and are a lot more powerful. What I also want to stress out, willpower is a stat that is for mages extremely powerful because you want low cooldowns all over the board, especially when you're relying on your mutations to fight. You have also a lot more options than I have mentioned in this video. You can go completely away from the melee ranged and magic counter thing and completely go into mutations, spam that willpower, ego, and play completely different. Whatever is the idea, go for the idea and check how you can realize it. But the knowledge that I gave you here among these things should apply to all the builds in some degree. And I hope this was helpful for you. I hope you have now better understanding about the character creation process. If you have any good tips, things that you want to add on in and talk about, be my guest. This game is wide and deep, and I am all ears to hear what you guys say. Leave a like, leave a subscribe, consider checking out the description box, and also feel free to support the channel. I really appreciate you folks. Many thanks to all the supporters of Icon Gaming, and a lot of thanks for you watching this video through all my self-advertisement babble, and thanks for being around. See you all soon. Bye-bye.